and this is Gen X Life is Good, where I read and research and test and then share with you what I learn about biohacking for anti-aging, health maintenance, and just better life in fields such as diet and nutrition, exercise, brain performance, meditation, sleep, and so forth. Today I want to talk to you about some frequently asked questions that I get from subscribers on my website concerning the DIY version of the FMD, the Fasting Mimicking Diet. So there's another video out there where I answered some questions, and I've got more, so I'm going to answer 3 or 4 more today. And then if you guys have more questions, just email me at chris@genxlifeisgood.com or leave questions in the comments to this video, and I'll do another FAQ session maybe another time. Right? So one question I get a lot is on the potatoes. Right? Almost every day I tell you guys to steam small potatoes and use those as a snack. In one of my longer videos, I talk about why there's so many potatoes and butternut squash in the recipes, mainly because the percentage of carbohydrates, or the percentage of calories from carbohydrates per day, is relatively high. And it's not hard to take in carbohydrates, but it's hard to take in carbohydrates that don't also have quite a bit of protein. Right? When you think of grains, for instance, wheat, rice, quinoa, all those have a much larger percentage of protein than potatoes or butternut squash. That's why those two are always a staple for me. Now, people say, well, what about potatoes though? Aren't, white potatoes kind of bad for you because they're simple carb? And the answer is yes, they're maybe not the greatest, they're not kale, but they also don't have the protein of kale. So the reason I suggest that you steam these ahead of time and then eat them cold is because that converts a lot of the starch in the potato from a glucose spiking carbohydrate that gives you, the insulin spike, to a resistant starch. So a resistant starch, as the name implies, resists being digested. So it basically goes through your system without spiking blood sugar. And it arrives in the colon undigested. And then in the colon itself, your good bacteria are going to eat the starch, the resistant starch in the potato, and that nourishes and strengthens your entire gut flora. Right? So resistant starch is actually a really good thing to have in your diet. It helps improve your gut flora. It helps stave off or prevent some other metabolic diseases. So there are a lot of benefits to having these prebiotic resistant starches. Other things that are resistant starches are, for instance, white rice that's cooked and cooled and can then be reheated, but important is that it's cooled, right? It's the cooling process that converts the starch, basically. So as you're eating these steamed and then cooled potatoes, don't feel too bad because at least they provide resistant starch. Okay? So that was the question on the potatoes. Another question I get is on the Cindy's balsamic dressing. So those of you who've read my recipes know that a couple of days I use a salad dressing that's called Cindy's balsamic, and it's a U.S. product. It's probably not even available everywhere in the U.S., and certainly if you guys are overseas, I'm sure you don't have that there. So what can you do instead? You can make your own balsamic dressing, basically. Okay? So I actually went in and looked at the numbers for this. So on the Cindy's, day 1, I'm asking for 25 grams of Cindy's. You could replace that with 12 grams of olive oil, 10 grams of balsamic vinegar, and maybe about 5 grams of apple cider vinegar for just like a little bit more tartness. And then, of course, you can put, salt and pepper and garlic powder to taste. I will experiment a little bit more with this, and I will actually put that as a note in the recipes, or maybe replace the Cindy's altogether. I just haven't gotten around to that, but I wanted to at least let you know. And then on day 2, where you the recipe calls for 15 grams of Cindy's, use 7 grams of olive oil, 6 grams of balsamic, and 4 grams of apple cider vinegar. Okay? Another question I get a lot is, what do you eat on refeeding day? So when you go to the Prolon website and you read about, Dr. Longo's fasting mimicking diet, he advises to eat soups, salads, a little bit of maybe rice or pasta. Kind of be careful with the animal protein because you don't want to shock your body. Remember that on day 4 and 5 of the FMD, autophagy really begins, and your cell turnover, the stem cell creation, is continuing past the end of the fast. So say, it begins on the afternoon of day 4, it continues to day 5, but then even on day 6, your refeeding day, the stem cell creation continues. So you want to make sure that you support that as much as possible, right? So what I typically do on refeeding day, I don't have breakfast because I don't usually have breakfast. I do intermittent fasting through breakfast. But then for lunch, I might have something that has some protein in it, although not animal protein. A lot of times I'll have something like a black bean salad, like black beans, bell pepper, tomato with a lemon dressing or something. And I'll have a pretty big portion of that, along with maybe a half or maybe even a whole avocado if I'm really hungry. So that still keeps you in a plant-based environment, it doesn't shock your system, but you're getting in a few more calories than you normally would on the FMD. And then that night, I might have a salad with maybe 3 or 4 ounces of salmon, wild caught if you can, but any salmon's good. So, or maybe another protein that you like, maybe another fish, ideally a fatty fish, because that's good for the DHA, which my DIY version doesn't supply, because DHA is really only in animal products, or in products, in pills that are made from algae, kind of like what is included in the Prolon kit. But I don't do supplements during these 5 days. So you want to try and replenish vitamin D, which is hard to get except for mushrooms. You want to try to replenish the DHA, which is most easily done with salmon, for instance. So refeeding day, I try to stay away from fried foods. I try to stay away from sugar. I try to stay away at least as long as I can until dinner time from animal protein. But I do take in some plant protein for lunch. And I do snack on some fruit, some stuff that is forbidden during the FMD because you can't afford the sugar. But, I might have an apple or something in the afternoon, but I would probably not have a cookie. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of a guideline for that. I guess what I should mention also is I don't really follow Dr. Longo's guideline for soups and salads, because basically on my DIY version, you eat soups and salads the entire time, right? So on day 6, I feel like you can do something a little bit more. All right, so if you have other questions, let me know, and I will answer those maybe in a couple weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening, and I love hearing from you, so please send me an email, leave me a comment in the comment section. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.